not sure if that's a good or bad thing, but we're bowling on 50 feet the first tournament and then 40 feet the next tournament. The first tournament, what I saw in the pattern was you just had to stay right and let the early friction hook the ball, pretty much. And it just laid off there because the oil is all the way oiled to almost the head pin. Some balls that I used that looked good was the Black Widow's Ghost Pearl and the Hammer Special Effect, so bigger cores, solid but shiny. And the second tournament pattern is 40 feet. Balls that looked good was, again, the White Widow, so bigger core. And then the GB5 is solid. I have a little shine on it. It's drilled about 3 inches, so it is not that strong, and I'm able just to kind of stay right. And then I was able to move a little further left with a severe collision. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this week in Rochester. 2 good tournaments, which gets me into Tournament of Champion Week, or whatever you want to call it, for the final event of the week. So make sure you watch on Bowl TV. shirt and hammer logo. Turbo Grippies made it. Rochester Open has been completed and I was able to finish 10th. Overall, the lanes got better for me. The night block I was able to put 202 over to get me to plus 290. And that kind of skyrocketed me up to 7th. During match play, they were iffy, obviously different pair to pair, and just overall there was significantly less people bowling, so the lane transition wasn't as significant. So I was able to find something the last couple of games once again to end my first round of match play, but then the second round of match play, we can just forget about it. I felt like I bowled a lot better than what my score was, and it just didn't go my way, which happens. It is what it is. And we finished with 10th place and a nice check. Some balls I used were a Vaporize, a Theorem, and a GB5 Solid, and that was pretty much the balls that I used the entire time. I didn't really move around too much with other balls, mainly because I knew exactly what these balls were going to do, and they got me to get into the cut, and I just added more pieces to my arsenal. And now I'm looking forward to the PWBA Pepsi Open.
Hit the subscribe button so you never miss a video. Be the first to see the latest content and behind the scenes moments. Let's keep the pins falling and the content rolling.